The Things We All Carry is a podcast about first responders and their stories surrounding trauma on the job. The intention of this podcast is to raise awareness and share meaningful conversation around a subject often viewed as taboo or simply ignored. Be aware this content may be graphic and it is real. It may not be suitable for children or adults triggered by this subject matter. Hey guys. You know, this weekend was another one of those firsts, and I hope that I'm running out of these firsts. And I told you a while ago that I was trying to prepare myself better for the first. And for those of you who might not know and might not have the backstory, this past October on Halloween, my mother passed away after a long battle with cancer. And I keep talking about the first things that have come up since her death, including holidays, my birthday, her birthday. And now, Mother's Day was this past weekend. And, I kind of get into this point where, okay, I can kind of prepare myself mentally to kind of deal with things, but she still weighs on my mind, despite the fact that I'm dealing with it a little bit better. And anybody that's lost a parent or a loved one like that can hopefully understand and empathize a little bit. And I know it's not the same for everybody, and I can appreciate that. For me, it's always these firsts. They really bring her to mind, and Mother's Day is one of those days, right? Easter, her birthday, Christmas, those things that she loves so much. And Mother's Day was the day to kind of honor her when she was here and say, let her know how much we loved her and how much she meant to us. And it's still there. It's just, I guess, done in a different way. And so, that was this past Sunday. I kind of had her in the back of my mind or in the forefront of my mind all day long. There was no escaping it. I think I dealt with it a lot better than I have in other situations. I kind of try to meet it head on. And I think that's necessary. And I don't do enough of that, meeting stuff head on. And we talk about growth. I talk about growth a lot on this show. And growth is not easy. Growth is something that comes out of some sort of a struggle or some sort of pain or some sort of recognition that something needs to change. And in some cases, growth is so necessary that without it, you're just going to fall by the wayside. And so some of the things that I grapple with is actually recognizing what growth is necessary and accepting my responsibility in the need for growth, and then actually pushing forward and getting uncomfortable. And I've gotten really uncomfortable in the last little bit because I've forced myself into situations to try and kind of force that growth. By nature, I think that I like to avoid quite a bit, and that's not a good thing. And part of that avoidance is my fear of failure. And so it's easier to control. This is going to sound really weird, I think, but it's almost easier to control the failure than let the failure happen naturally or outside of my control. And I'll explain that a little bit. So if I don't do something, it's not that I failed at it. It's just that I failed to do it. Still failure, right? And I'm not improving myself. But for some reason in my head, it's a better justification or it's a better thing than attempting and falling flat on my face. It's kind of negligible and it may be semantics. But because of this, I haven't allowed myself or haven't pushed myself to try the things that I need to try. And so some of this is coming about because I'm starting to pay attention a little bit more to myself, pay attention to how I interact with people. And things are coming to light for me. And it doesn't feel great, but at least you start to say, oh, okay, wait a second. That's a change I can make. And I need to make that change. I need to meet things more head on. Like if I know that I need to get out there, I need to create a path for this show and for my platform and for myself personally, But to do that, I have to put myself out there. And to put myself out there is a risk of failure and a risk of embarrassment and a risk of just looking like a fool. And that doesn't make any sense, because a year from now, I'll still look like a fool, maybe a bigger fool. And so I have to learn how to deal with that information. Okay, so I like to avoid things. Well, what does that mean for me? It means I need to put myself out there. I need to not say no to things, and I need to push myself forward and push myself into even more discomfort and even more uncertainty in a way. But that uncertainty is done with more of a purpose. And it kind of relates to this episode. This is part 2 of last week's episode, and it's with Eric. And Eric is a stand-up comic, and talk about putting yourself out there. He's taken his personal life and he's put it on a stage, and he's making jokes and he's engaging people. And, you know, as we talked about in episode, or the first part of this episode with him, he, you know, the very base of comedy is some sort of tragedy. And so whatever he's making a joke about is tinged with some very serious issues. And you kind of expect that in almost all comedy. And so I need to learn how to, I don't know, not be more out there necessarily, because I put a lot out there, but to not be so adverse to risk, and not be so reserved when it comes to, all right, I need to put 2 steps in front of me and just drive on. And if what I do doesn't work, that's okay. At least I did something. Because right now I'm stagnant, and I've talked about it. There's this, yeah, it's just me being stagnant again. And I thought that, you know, maybe I mistakenly thought that stepping away from the fire service would push me in directions, and I would embrace them with open arms. But I didn't embrace it. I stayed in a routine that wasn't beneficial for me, and then I get stuck. And that's human nature, is to find a routine and live it. But if the routine isn't benefiting you, isn't bringing you what you need it to bring you, then that's ridiculous to stay in it. And so that needs to be broken up. I need to find that path forward, and I need to work towards a goal and not give a shit. Really, I mean, yeah, of course I'm going to care, but I'm not going to care. You know, there's a much longer play or con in play here. It's not a tomorrow thing. It's not a next week thing. It's not a next month thing. I'm talking a year or 2 down the road, and what I need to set myself up for. And that's what I'm avoiding. And I need to stop avoiding that. And I need to get my shit together and push forward. And I think that a lot of us do this. We get into these patterns. We get into comfort, and comfort fucking kills. And I'm tired of comfort killing. And I can feel it in me. I need more of that challenge. And I'm the one holding myself back from that challenge. So I need to push myself out there more. I need to make myself more open, more available, more vulnerable in a way. And I need to search out that growth, and I need to push for it. And that push will bring what it brings. I just need to put my head down, and like Tyler Childers says in the song, just keep my nose to the grindstone. Because I need to keep working. I need to keep pushing forward, and I need to make, and stealing another phrase, I need to make my own luck in a way. You know, luck comes somewhere at that intersection of hard work, right? And whatever. So put my head down, get the work done, and see where it goes from there. And I've talked to a couple people, and these people have an idea of what I want to do. And it's nothing I want to announce right now. It's going to be a prodigious project. It's going to be a pretty big undertaking. And I've got some people to talk to and some people to flesh things out with, and logistics to take care of. But this one, I got some messages last week when I said I was going to change things up, and a couple of people said, listen, whatever you're going to do, you're going to do. And we're along for the ride. We can't wait to see where it heads. And And I think I gave a preview to a couple people, and they had wonderful words to say about it and support for it. On that note, I'd love to hear from you guys. I want to hear more from you. So if you can reach out to me, Stack at The Things We All Carry, or reach out on Instagram, reach out on Substack. I want to hear from you. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what you want to hear, what you want to read, what you want to do. And then I want to try and encompass that into this platform of The Things We All Carry. I want to make this more of the community and figure out what it is you guys want to hear, what you guys want to experience. And the only way to do that is for you guys to engage me a little bit and tell me what's going on. So I'm going to continue to tweak this show a little bit. I immediately got yelled at last week after releasing my episode from TJ, because TJ's imploring me to go to more of a biweekly mode where I'm releasing episodes every other week. And I'm not really there yet. I'm not sure how I'm going to work it, but I do need to lighten this workload a little bit, and I need to figure it out. And the reason I need to lighten it is because I do want the other things to happen, and I need to be able to focus some energies there as well. So bear with me while I still fine-tune these changes, and let me know what you think about shorter episodes, longer episodes, bi-weekly episodes, weekly episodes. I want to hear everything. I want to know where you guys stand, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Because that's what I'm doing this show for. I'm putting these shows together each week to put out to you guys, to hear what you have to say, to hopefully affect your lives in some positivity, in some positive manner, to bring a light to you guys. So don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what you think. Let me know what direction you'd like this show to go. And I'll take everything into consideration, and it'll be part of what I'm doing when I'm starting to think about tweaking the show. Welcome to episode 119 of The Things We All Carry. Today is part 2 with Eric, and I covered it pretty well last week in the intro, so I'll just do a brief little piece here. Eric has been a firefighter going on 25 years now. He's a former paramedic. Most importantly, he's been married for 17 years. He's got a teenage daughter, and he's also become a stand-up comedian. He's taken the things that life have given him and he's experienced in life, and he's turned them into jokes and stories, and he's on stage, and he's hosting, and he's doing these gigs, and he's enjoying life. And he has some really good insight in these 2 episodes about, what you can do when life kind of hands you shit. And obviously one of his methods is to make a joke about it. And by making a joke, it kind of puts the spotlight on it, gets it out there, and he can kind of process through some of this stuff. Tune in, listen to episode 119, which is part 2 with Eric. Let me know what you think, and then get out there and do something for yourselves. A quick reminder to please help us build a community which not only recognizes but supports each other through the struggles and recovery. Reach out through Instagram at The Things We All Carry, or email mystory@thethingsweallcarry.com to offer support and share your story. Please remember to leave a review on iTunes and give a shout out to any first responder you know, love, or care about. Y'all enjoy the show. Do you ever use comedy as an outlet for what you're seeing at work?
I was trying to get a little more open with it. I got this joke I'm working on now, and I believe in it, and I know it's going to come together, but it's called PT at Disney. And like his fireman, like, bro, if you're ever in a bad place or a dark place, you can call me. We say that all the time, right? But dude, let's be honest, there's bad times I can call you. Like, what if I call you and I'm suicidal and you're at Disney with the family, It's like, hey, bro, I think I'm about to shoot myself. It's like, fuck, man, you're suicidal, but I'm at the happiest place on earth. I'm literally in Disney, dude. Yeah, but you said I could call you. That was just something I said, like, to be nice, can you try the 1-800 number? So, to me, that's a funny premise. I got to kind of air it out more, but, yeah. And then I with that same bit, I try to go on, like, I call my friend, he's at Disney because I'm in a dark place, but he's in the happiest place. And while he's talking to me, he's eating a Mickey Mouse ice cream cone and it falls on the ground, right? I'm like, he's like, oh shit. And I'm like, what, man? What happened? He goes, I was just eating one Mickey Mouse ice cream cone and its fucking head fell off, man, and it splattered all over the ground. And I'm like, He goes, yeah, it kind of reminds me of that lady that got ejected out of her car in I-4 the other night. Remember that? Yeah, dude, that's why I was calling.
That's why I'm calling.
so yeah, I know that joke's going to come together, and people always laugh at the fucking head falling off of the ice cream cone, but I got to find a good way to blend the dark nature of trauma with making it funny from our, gallows humor side of things.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask, because we do have that dark humor and we have it all the time and we know it's fucking funny. We know it's funny, but we're the ones going through that incident. And so to bring that to a room of unsuspecting audience members, that's got to be such a delicate thing to do.
Yeah. So I run that joke out. I got that. I didn't give you the long format of it, but I got, at the end, it ends with, basically, I hang up the phone with them and I go out back and I was contemplating suicide, but there was a snake, right? So I'm like, I ran back in the house because I hate snakes. Like, I want to die, but I don't want to get bit by a snake and die. And, that's comical. But then the part I say that my wife comes out, she hears me screaming in the house about a snake, oblivious to what I was about to do outside. She's like, what's your problem? I was like, oh, there's a snake. It scared the shit out of me. So you're such a pussy. You're afraid of snakes. I'm like, whatever, dude. Superman was afraid of kryptonite. Right. Fucking rock. And then I make them laugh. I'm like, well, hey, I don't want to hear anything from you because you're afraid of birds. She's like, what do you mean I'm afraid of birds? I'm like, yeah, every time I say swallow, you freak the fuck out. I'll laugh at it. So now I'm just taking this dark subject matter and made it funny. Yeah, it's hard, man. And I find like I can't do too many mental health jokes in a row.
No.
You can't do, you can't get too dark for too long.
Mm-mm.
You got to dig them back out of it. But people like the honest stuff. They like when it's honest and it's real,
Yeah, I would imagine that's the same as anything in real life. I mean, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you can pick up that these people, they're not real. They're putting on a show for me right now and I can't connect. It's the same thing with comedy. If you're not real, people aren't going to connect to you. But really at the heart of comedy is tragedy, correct?
100%. It's 100% the juxtaposed to a comedy. It is literally making the sad funny, and it is like that's so many comedians are depressed, and I think that's probably what arguably led me into it. It's an outlet to laugh, and it's like the firehouse table used to be. Like my comedian friends I've never been in a fire with them, but I'm here to tell you they're some of the baddest dudes I know. Like. They're fucking awesome, but I love talking with those guys and joking with them. And, we've been into some battles of comedy clubs together. That's for sure. But it's hard, man. Cause like sometimes comedy will leave you. Like I've had nights where I've murdered in front of 150 people, had the set of my life. And the next day you're sitting at home and then you're depressed because you're coming down from this high. You're just like exhausted, And then, I've had days where I'm bombed in front of people. And the next day, I'm like, why do I do this? But I love it, man. I really do.
What's that like though? And I don't mean that because I think you bomb often, but what's it like to bomb? What's that feel like? Like, do you go, no, this is the work I'm putting in and this is worth it? Or what are you doing to get yourself through those points?
You just got to push through. You just got to, like last night, I run a room on Tuesday nights and I host it. So hosting's hard, man, because you're literally just getting people, you're starting off the show and you're starting off with some jokes and you're getting them used to transitioning over from eating chicken wings and drinking a beer to, oh, okay, I'm here to laugh. And we got comedians coming on stage. So you're walking them across that threshold,
Okay.
Like, hey, it's a comedy show is what we're doing. And it's literally the hardest spot. And you bomb a lot. Like you'll be up there telling jokes and you're just trying to get them transitioned over. But you just got to push through it. You got to double down and dig in. like, no, these are jokes. Hey, well, that was awkward, or that sucked, didn't it? You know, and just keep pushing or keep digging. And yeah, you just got to stick to it. And some guy, like, you get the point too, like, if you're doing longer sets, 20, 30 minutes, when something's not working, if you can see that the crowd, like, you're doing marriage jokes and you're shitting on being married, but you see the crowd's not laughing because they all came out to get laid tonight. When you're out with their wives trying to get laid and they don't want to laugh at your marriage jokes, You just see that and you're like, all right, I'm going to transition out of that and we're going to go down another subject matter. And we call that in comedy the pivot. You just got to know when to switch, topics.
It's got to be interesting though to try and read the audience and learn how to read the audience as you're still trying to learn how to tell jokes.
Yeah, it is, and your barometer is feedback from that. It's the laughter. It is how it's developed, and it's someone said it like Rogan or something. But comedy is one of the only arts that's developed by input from the audience. Mm-hmm. So when you hear a comedian do it, when you see a special on Netflix like Bill Burr, like he's told that joke 5,000 times, and he's crafted each word and each pause and each nuance to the point where he delivers it to you in a special on Netflix.
Right.
That's where it becomes the art. And yeah, you reading the room is part of that, getting that feedback. Like, all right, they're not laughing at this, or they laughed at that part, but not that part. So then you come back the next morning, you're listening to your set from the night before. And you're like, all right, well, they laugh when I say fucking Mickey Mouse's ice cream cone's head fell off. But, they laugh at that part. And so you got to restructure that joke and maybe put that part at the end. And how do I do that? How do I still convey the same message? Yeah. Which arguably my wife would probably tell you, the comedy it's all about communication. And my wife would probably tell you I'm not that good at it. But yeah, it's communication skills. It's literally trying to convey a message and paint a picture, verbally.
So how many times when you walk into a fire station does someone go, hey, tell me a joke? And how old does that fucking get?
Now, fortunately they don't do it because they know that I'm going to end up what we call bidding them. Like throughout the day, I say stupid shit all day, man. So I kind of work. Sometimes I'll work a joke into a conversation. And, some guys are like, dude, did you just bit me or joke me? Well, yeah. Well, I'm always talking shit. But now, I'll be honest with you, man, the firemen have been so supportive of it. Probably more supportive of that than me being a fireman. But how firemen are, dude. We're all perpetual haters,
Oh, yeah. I just had that conversation yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, we're fucking haters, man. But yeah, they're very supportive of my comedy, and dude, I love them for it. How it is, man. Like you have your band of brothers, if you will. You have your guys that are always your ride or die and are always supportive. But yeah, man, it's cool. The guys are super supportive of it.
So where do you see the two going? Where do you see firefighting going for you in the future? And where do you see comedy going? Or where would you prefer comedy to go?
So I think I'm going to retire in about 3 years. That'll give me my 20 with my current department. I'm ready to go. I'm kind of exacerbated on the sadness and just, you've seen a lot. I'm getting older, man. I ain't getting younger, But yeah, I see me running more shows with comedy. I'm good with that management side of skills and production and advertising. I'm good with that stuff. So I see me evolving into more show production and running and booking more shows, as well as expanding my own comedy career. I wouldn't mind getting more, as I get better, getting more honest with the mental health stuff. Like last night I did a whole chunk on trying to be positive, going to my counselor, and my counselor tells me I need to be more positive, but I suck at that, like that's not being positive, but yeah, I'm just trying to be more real and kind of integrate some of my real thoughts in with my perspectives of a fireman. And who knows, the two might blend together where gives me more of a voice, to speak out like in situations like this, So I don't know. I'll tell you what are the, not getting too dark again, but we were talking about how we did just have a suicide in our department. The first shift after that, our first shift back, they cycled us down through debriefing and this, that, and the other. And it was funny. One of the chiefs stood up there and he's like, "Hey, what can you guys do to be better and help each other out?" I lost my shit. And I think this is the comedian side of me. Is like, I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to say anything. To a fault, many would tell you. But I'm like, hey, man, I can't believe you're asking us what we can do. I'm like, we just had a chief and a lieutenant kill himself in the past couple of years, and you're asking us what we're going to do? I'm like, to me, the blood's on y'all's hands. Like, what are you guys doing as a department? You've got individuals reaching the pinnacle of career success with arguably what should be the height of their careers and are killing themselves. Like, we need to step back and look at the culture. Like, what is going on? These guys should be stoked,
And what was the answer? Did they have anything for you when you said that?
Well, so there was also a female in there that was a therapist, and she's like, I hear you and I understand what you're saying. And I think it's a tough question, and they didn't have the answers at the time, and nor do they, but like, it just rubbed me that they were asking us. And I know it was altruistic and well-intended when they asked us what we can do and what we're going to do for each other. But I think the questions need to extend further than that,
No, I definitely, they definitely do, because I think in many ways we do look out for each other, because that's built-in part of the culture, especially when you have a tight-knit crew.
Yeah. Well, and then that's one of the things I kind of, with this gentleman, was he was a floating lieutenant.
Yeah.
And I've argued for our policies. I'm like, we need to not, the way we do things, we float people around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we need to get away from that, because the argument can honestly be made, and or the conversation should be had, that this individual, had he have had a steady house, maybe his crew would have noticed some change. You know what I mean? Those are, I think, the conversations that need to be had on a management level. Like, how do we reduce potentiating stressors?
Right.
What do we do? And this goes back to my belief that as firemen, we all say it's never the job. Like, if you were one of my best boys and I called you, I'd never, not 99% of the time, I would never call you to complain about like what I saw.
Right.
It's always the bullshit afterwards or leading up to it or something,
Yeah. And none of these traumas that we experience are experienced in a vacuum. And that's what we're talking about here. You have to apply a real world lens to that.
Hey guys, quick break right here just to check in and thank each of you for listening to the show. Your support has been paramount, and I appreciate all of you. I have one request though. I need you to share the show with everyone you know. Help me get the word out and spread these stories as far and as wide as we can. While you're at it, please leave a review of the show wherever you happen to listen. Feel free to reach out to me at any time to share your story, to talk, or to pass on suggestions. Let's get on with the rest of the show.
Yeah, well, 100%. And so to land the plane on that, the very next shift, I floated to a station where the lieutenant, he was an engineer of mine, maybe 7-8 years ago. And it was a 4-man station, single engine house. And I know these guys well, and they love me to death. Like, you know what I mean? They're the ones that, like, they think it's funny I do comedy. Like, they'll ask me about it, But we were sitting around the kitchen table for breakfast, and we're having a conversation about, the gentleman that just passed and his suicide. And at breakfast, I told these guys my story that I just told you about, how, I had my accident and the depression that I have. And I was like, here's my analogy. I was like, me telling you this story is, I want you guys to know that I'm a gopher.
Right.
And I go into holes. And I come out of holes. And this is something, like, a lot of times the mental health side, they're like, oh, if you're ever in a dark place, reach out and call someone. When I'm in a dark place, I don't have the energy or motivation to call anybody. I don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
So that's real. In my case, it's hard.
Yeah.
And then when I'm out of a dark place, and I'm happy, the last thing I want to talk about is depressing shit. I'm just stoked, So God forbid something ever happens to me, I'm not calling anybody. It's just kind of how my nature is. And I said, I tell you guys this story so you know that I go into holes, but I come out of them. And when I come out of them and I tell you this story, I look around and I see other gophers. And you guys are like, oh shit, Eric's a gopher too. He goes into holes. And I think that is the kind of increased conversation that is therapeutic and does have the ability to help, is you're like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that got in a fight merging into traffic on a Tuesday.
No,
I'm not the only one that feels like a failure at home. I'm not the only who drags work with me. And you know what I mean? I think those are the conversations and just being real that lead to, I think, potentially helping people.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I had just, I write on, have you ever heard of Substack?
Yeah.
I have a page on Substack, and that's where I put podcast and some writings. And I had just written about this, and you call it gopher holes, and I referenced a song from an artist. His name is Ren. And he's talking about this. He's talking about this pendulum that goes from dark to light. And it's the same thing as gopher holes.
Yeah.
And that's what life is. It's a pendulum. And if you haven't had that experience, well, you're probably going to have that experience, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's okay to realize that you do have these swings. But you have to be able to. I'm getting that go from me.
Sorry, I'm shutting my phone. It's about to die. But is it gone?
No. It's really bad.
How about now? Is it better?
You changed. You went to a. There.
All right. Sorry about that. Is it better?
Yeah. Now it's gone. Boy, it was a terrible echo.
Sorry.
But no, we'll get through this before your phone dies real quick here. And I'm just, that pendulum, you have to be aware that it swings from dark to light, but that it's going to swing back, and it's not always going to be bad.
Yeah, and that's correct. So the thing, like, if we were sitting around the table, I told these guys, I'm like, dude, PTSD and issues like that we have in the fire service is like mental herpes. It really is. And I've kind of come to this analogy, and the key, and this is one of the big things I need to focus on, but I see it's like mental herpes because 1 in 5 fucking people have it. You know what I mean? You're going to suffer flare-ups. And the key is not to pass it on to others, i.e. your family, which is one of the things I desperately try to remind myself of, and I'm guilty of not doing enough. But like, if I come home jacked the fuck up because I've been up all night, I'm pissed about some reports getting kicked back, and pissed about floating this month, and now I'm grouchy at home, and like, you know what I mean? And those are the things, like, I try not to infect others, i.e. my family, No,
that's a perfect way of putting it. I love that analogy, because it is. And that's exactly what we're trying not to do.
Yeah, and then that's the hard part. And then the solutions are, cognitive recognition. Like, I've often wondered, in the state of Florida, guys can pension out on PTSD now, and I've wondered often if that's not, if it's hurting our cause, and if it's causing some departments not to want to acknowledge that you've been on stressful calls or had stressful situations or might need help, because now that places them in acknowledging liability and might increase their risk of you being on, pensioning out. So I don't know. I'm interested by that, because I'm sorry, I'll land the thought here. The guys, because if I let PTSD cause me to leave the fire department, whether I'm sitting in the recliner at the fire station and I'm ate up with issues, or I'm sitting at home and I'm ate up at issues, either way, I'm going to be ate up with them. So I have to fix them. It doesn't matter where I'm at. And that's where the self-help and or reaching out has to be part of the healing process, you know?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I had a conversation a few episodes back with a gentleman up in Jacksonville area, not Jacksonville area, Panama City Beach area. And he is retired out because of PTSD. And he speaks about it because there used to be a tab on the computer where you would click that it was a significant call or a traumatic call. And you could add it to the notes, and that's how they were kind of keeping track. Well, apparently that's been changed, and you can't do that anymore. It has to be approved by a battalion chief or above.
Same with us. They just took it away.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, so now we're going to play gatekeeper of what they believe would affect you.
Yeah, and I think I honestly can't help but think that it's a knee-jerk reaction to potentially guys pensioning out. Like shit, we give them a clickable tab that they can tabulate and say that, hey, I ran on 76 traumatic calls this month.
Right. Well, but that's the issue though, because it just because it's traumatic to me doesn't mean it's traumatic to you, or vice versa. Just because it isn't traumatic to you doesn't mean it isn't traumatic to me.
Yeah, no, that's it. You know, one of the things I advocated for, and it, you know how it is, man, especially when you don't hold rank, like no one wants to listen to you. But I wish our department would do things like you treat, you know, bloodborne exposure. If I get exposed, if I get blood on me, I get, you know, an initial assessment, day one, follow up 30, 60, 90, 120, and then 360 days later. You know what I mean? I get those labs and those follow-ups on a bloodborne pathogen exposure.
Oh yeah.
And I would like to see where we do the same for a mental health exposure. You know, let's do those same style of follow-ups. You know, on people. But you know as well as I do, mental health is hard to quantify. Like I can't show that you have elevated, you know, troponin levels or anything that's causing you mental health issues, you know, so it's harder to quantify.
It's much harder to quantify.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things like it's, and I've made this statement before on the show. It's kind of like, I know mental health and I know trauma when I see it, doesn't mean I can define it for you right now.
Yeah. You're right. And then for me, like the biggest thing, like you were asking me, what do I do? And I'm guilty of it. Like my wife will tell you, like for me, it boils down to self-recognition. You know what I mean? And trying to word it off in my head. Like if I start ruminating on a bad thought of, oh shit, I'm a failure at work, you know, you're still a backwards fireman, and, you know, just stupid stuff like that. Like you're coming home, or hell, you suck at dadding.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
Like just those things, you know, and I know a lot of it, and that's what makes the complex PTSD more complex is I know, you know, a lot of that comes from sometimes you don't want to, like, you know, there's a reason I didn't want to ride on the busiest rescues because I'm saturated with what I've seen and felt. And granted, it's not one specific call. I mean, I could tell you thousands of bad calls, but not one that specific that bothers me. My sponge is full. That's it. It's not one specific thing that ripped my sponge apart, you know, just saturated. And that's it. But, you know, I tell people all the time, like when I first got into fire service, I was a bar of soap. You know, the fucking ivory soap. It's got sharp 90-degree edges, you know. Now 25 years later, I'm just that little nub that's all soft and fucking rounded down, circling the drain at the bottom of the shower.
The one that keeps slipping out of your hand every time you try to do anything with it. You go, fuck.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the fire service only. 25 years later, you're just that little bar of soap.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
But dude, I think here's a takeaway I learned in the past few days. The day after the guy I work with died, he was on my shift, and I feel bad not saying his name.
Nah, you don't need to.
I don't. I know. I ripped to him though, man. He was a good dude, man. I loved him. On the way home that morning, I called 3 firemen friends of mine just to touch base, not even to talk about him, you know, just to talk to friends, you know. And I actually started writing a joke about it, that all 3 of my friends were kind enough to reach out and send me the voicemail. You know? and They did. I literally went to voicemail, and I'm like, they say call a friend, but those guys, I love them to death. They were probably in a moment where they're driving home, drinking coffee, listening to the radio, and finding their own inner peace. And they didn't want to be in rehash the conversation on the guy who just passed away. And I get that. And to me, it highlighted, and I tell people like this to highlight that if you are in a deep, bad place and you are the type of person that will reach out, if someone doesn't answer, don't be afraid to call one of those self-help numbers.
Right.
Because sometimes your friends may be at Disney World or they may be driving home drinking coffee and not wanting to talk. And it's not personal.
What are the odds that all three of them were at the happiest place on earth together and they just said, here?
Yeah. They probably were. My shift does some weird. No. But, so a few minutes later, I called my best friend, just talk with him. And he's not in the fire service. And it's like, yeah, Brian, I have bouts of depression. He's like, we all do, Eric. He's like, it's life. He's like, you need to focus on having bouts of happiness. He's like, suffer from bouts of happiness. I'm like, that's simple, man. But I think you might be on to something,
That's perfect. And I think that's the perfect spot to leave the end of that conversation. I think that sums it up perfectly. Practice the bouts of happiness.
It's true, man. You got to find your happy. Like, yeah, all right, life's the fucking depressing, man. Go have moments of happiness, something to look forward to.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to those last two questions I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm always asking people, not always. This is a new question for me, and I had to correct myself. That's not always. I put out some feelers for writing prompts from my broadcast channel, and one of the prompts that was offered up to me was the question of when's the last time you had a sense of awe? And I thought about that, and I say, you know what? I think we get so jaded with everyday life that we don't even recognize a sense of awe at times. And so I wanted to bring it to people's attention and ask all the guests, when is the last time you feel you saw or you experienced a sense of awe?
Dang, that's a good question. I mean, not being able to deep dive or think too hard. Maybe the time a couple of years ago, my daughter and I, my family, we were down in West Palm down there at Peanut Island. And I nerd out, like when we go out on the boat, like I like to catch Peanut Island or some of those areas on a dead slack high tide. And we literally in the water, just hanging out, snorkeling. And it was dead slack high tide and a pod of manatees came through. And yeah, just literally swam alongside of them and just cruised for probably half an hour around Peanut Island. And literally like fish tank, crystal clear conditions, man. Like it's freaking nuts. And I was there with my kid and got to experience it with my daughter. And I'd say that's probably most recent. I mean, that was only 2 years ago, but
that's pretty cool though. I love that because I know that experience because I used to scuba dive some, and being under there and seeing something like that and just kind of knowing that that's not your world. You're visiting this other world, but it's crazy. It is kind of awe-inspiring. I agree with you.
Yeah, it is, man. And another goofy thing that'll awe-inspire the moon. Like I'm obsessed with that thing. Like it's so weird to me, but like some there are times where I will be outside and I'll take a deep breath and just look up at the moon and be like, dude, it's all bigger than me, us, and all of this. I don't know shit.
That ties into what you just talked about. You search out high tide. I mean, the moon is what's affecting those tides.
Yeah. The moon blows my mind.
All right. What about a book? Do you have a book that you've read that you want to share with the audience?
Right. I feel, but the book I've referenced often, and I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, but it was a cool read. I grew up on punk rock music. Greg Graffin, he's got a PhD in evolutionary biology, but he's also the singer of a punk rock band called Bad Religion. Yeah. And it was a good book. It was him so he's got his PhD in evolutionary biology, and a theologist with a PhD in theology sent him an email one day, and it was like, hey man, one of my students brought you up to me, and I realized I used to listen to you when I would skate. And so they started this back and forth email discourse on basically atheism versus religion. And you had two intellects in their own perspective, you know, going back and forth. And it was called as the belief in God, good, bad, or irrelevant. And it was a cool read. And I'm not religious, you know, but I think one of the cool takeaways in there was, you know, if we were all lived in a more Jesus-like manner, it would be a better world, you know? And like I said, I'm not religious, but I'm like, yeah, if we all were just nicer and better to each other, the world would be better.
I'm going to have to check that out because I love that thought. And first of all, coming from who it's written from, it's got to be fascinating as well.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. There's points of it that get deep, you know, like sometimes Greg Graffin will express that he believes that we're merely, you know, you can control a cell in a dish, you know, you can make it respond to stimuli. And,
right.
You know, he's like, no, dude, free will doesn't exist. You're just literally 2 billion cells responding to stimuli in a petri dish of your body. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you know, it gets deep on some stuff, you know.
I was going to say, if you got an extra 2 hours, we can talk about free will and whether we have it or not. I mean, we can get into that. That's a crazy thought, isn't it?
It is, man. And I love those conversations, and especially when, you know, for or against from anyone more intelligent than I am. So yeah, books, it's a neat read, you know.
Cool.
It's definitely a neat read.
That's perfect. I appreciate it, man. I love it.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Dude, I've enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for being open. Thanks for being willing to come on and share. And thanks for telling your story.
Hey, man, I appreciate the invite, and I applaud you for what you're doing, for having people on, and, you know, various people, and having these conversations. Because I am a firm believer, you know, like your pendulum or the gopher analogy, you know, like that's it, man. You're not alone. You're not the only one that has weirdness, and you know, just look around, and more people talk and admit it, you know, the more we'll see that we're not alone. You know,
we're all fucked up at some level, aren't we?
We are, man. We are.
So
that's it, brother.
It's just moderating how fucked up we are.
That's the truth.
Hey, I sent you the link to the article, so get a read. Let me know what you think, and hey, I'll let you know when this is coming out, and we'll stay in touch, man.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate it, man. You have a great day.
Go enjoy your day.
And see you, brother.
And we're out.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Things We All Carry. Head over to the website, thethingsweallcarry.com, for show notes, resources, and to sign up for the newsletter. Until next week, take care of yourselves and remember to check in on each other.